Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Hope Logan's wedding to Liam Spencer marked the culmination of years of love, heartbreak, and reconciliation. Hope stood in the bridal room, her gown a cascade of silk and lace that caressed her curves like a dream. Her blonde hair was swept up in loose curls, and a diamond tiara gleamed on her head. She looked at her mirror, her blue eyes filled with hope and a grin on her lips. This was it. After all of the anguish and betrayals, she and Liam were finally going to have the life they had always desired. Downstairs, Liam straightened his cufflinks, his nervousness barely restrained. His dark hair was nicely combed, and his navy suit highlighted his strong shoulders. He took brief looks at the garden, imagining Hope walking down the aisle toward him. His heart filled with love for her and the family they were building with their daughter, Beth. He'd made too many mistakes to count, but today was about redemption, about showing Hope that he was the man she deserved. Wyatt, his best man, smacked him on the shoulder with a grin. "Are you ready, bro? This is the real deal," Liam said, his smile wide and his gut twisting with anticipation. The visitors took their seats, and the hubbub faded as the four played a delicate performance of Pachelbel's canon. Brooke, Hope's mother, dabbed at her eyes, her heart full with pride. Hope's father, Deacon Sharp, sat alongside her, his normally cocky grin tempered by the sight of his daughter's joy. Rich Forrester, the patriarch, stood tall, examining the gathering with pride and alertness. The Logans and Spencers were reunited, if only for this moment, and the weight of their common past hung in the air like a fragile piece. Hope appeared at the head of the aisle, her arm looped around Deacon's. The crowd gasped, their gaze drawn to her stunning beauty. Liam's breath halted in his throat, and his eyes locked on hers. She represented everything, his past, present, and future. As she glided down the petal-strewn walk, her grin remained constant, and her glance never left his. The officiant, a friendly older guy with a lovely voice, began the ceremony, his words creating a tapestry of love and dedication. Hope and Liam exchanged vows, their voices firm despite the emotion that choked them. "I promise to love and cherish you, through every storm and every sunrise," Hope whispered, her voice shaking with sincerity. Liam mirrored her words, his hand clutching hers, and his gaze promising eternity. The moment had arrived for the rings. Wyatt handed Liam the exquisite band, which Donna, Hope's maid of honor, passed to her. The officiant grinned. "If anyone here has a reason why these two should not be united in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The garden fell hushed as the weight of the question settled on the throng. Hope's smile faltered for a split second, her gaze shifting to the rear of the venue. Liam followed her look, his brow furrowed. Something wasn't right. Then, a voice broke the silence. "I object." The words were crisp and purposeful, slicing through the air like a sword. Heads turned, and gasps echoed throughout the audience. Steffy Forrester stood at the garden's edge, her black dress standing out against the sea of pastel colors. Her dark hair was pushed back firmly, and her eyes were flashing with wrath, making her almost unrecognizable. She went forward, her heels clicking across the stone path, grabbing everyone's attention. Hope's face turned pale, and the bouquet trembled in her hands. Liam's jaw stiffened, and his eyes narrowed. "Steffy, what the hell are you doing?" he demanded, his voice low and angry. Steffy paused a few feet from the altar, her eyes fixed on Hope. "I'm sorry, Hope," she continued, her voice full of hate, "but this wedding cannot happen. Not when you've been lying to everyone, including Liam." The crowd murmured, their gazes shifting between Steffy, Hope, and Liam. Brooke stood, her voice crisp. "Steffy, this is absurd.
Sit down."
But Steffy disregarded her, her gaze never leaving Hope's. "Tell them, Hope," she asked, her voice rising. "Tell them the truth about Beth." Hope's legs weakened, and she grabbed Liam's arm to keep herself stable. Her eyes were wide and full of tears. "Steffy, please," she said softly, her voice breaking. Not like this. Liam stared between the two women, perplexity and dread rising in his chest. Hope, what is she talking about? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The officiant shuffled nervously, still clutching the rings in his hands. The quintet had stopped playing, and the silence was overwhelming. Steffy moved closer, her voice breaking through the tension. Liam, I hope you've been hiding something. Something that alters everything. Beth isn't just your daughter, she's also mine. The words hung in the air like a bombshell, detonating every frail hope in the garden. Liam's face became slack, his eyes searching Hope's for any indication that this was a cruel joke. Hope's tears overflowed, and her body trembled as she shook her head. No, Steffy, you're wrong, she sputtered out. You don't understand. Steffy wasn't finished. She took a folder from her clutch and held it up like a weapon. I have proof, she declared, her voice triumphant. Medical records and DNA tests. Beth is mine, Liam. Hope knew, and she kept it from you, from all of us. She threw the folder to the ground in front of the altar, scattering documents across the petals. The audience was motionless, their looks a mix of shock and fear. Ridge moved forward, his voice booming. Steffy, it's enough. This is Hope's wedding. However, Steffy's eyes were wild, her pain and wrath consumed her. No, Dad, this is the truth. Hope abducted my baby, and she's been lying to Liam the entire time. Liam lurched back, his hand slipping out of Hope's. Hope, he cried with a hoarse voice. Tell me she's lying. Tell me this isn't real. Hope's sobbing shook her body, and her bouquet fell to the ground. I didn't know, she said softly, her voice barely audible. I promise, Liam. I didn't realize until recently. I was going to tell you, I promise. But her words were drowned out by Steffy's mocking laughter. Recently? Steffy spat. You have known for months, Hope. You led Liam to believe Beth was his and yours alone, but she is ours. The realization struck Liam like a physical blow. He staggered and clutched his chest. Beth, their daughter, the light of their lives. Was she Steffy's? His mind raced with memories of Beth's birth, her first grin, her little hands wrapping around his finger, all tainted by this betrayal. He saw Hope, the woman he had loved through every mistake and tragedy, as a stranger. How could you? He muttered, his voice breaking. How could you keep this from me? Hope grabbed for him with shaking hands. Liam, please let me explain. But he backed away, his eyes filled with pain. The guests were now speaking furiously, with some standing and others gripping their partners in shock. Brooke ran to Hope's side, throwing her arms around her daughter, but Hope was distraught, her sobbing ringing throughout the yard. Steffy stood upright, her chest heaving, her eyes glistening with her own tears. This wasn't simply about vengeance, it was about a mother's love and a kid taken away from her. The truth unfolded like a thread that had been tugged too tightly. Months ago, during a hectic night at the hospital, a mix-up occurred. Steffy, who was grieving the loss of her own child, was informed that her baby had died. But Beth, born to Hope at the same time, was still alive and, unbeknownst to everybody, Steffy's biological daughter, switched at birth due to a nurse's error and Hope's desperate desire to protect her own family. Hope had uncovered the truth weeks before, confiding solely in her mother, terrified by the fear of losing Liam and Beth. She had intended to inform Liam after the wedding, to ease him into the truth, but Steffy discovered it before, thanks to her own inquiry, which was fueled by mistrust and grief. Liam's world shattered. He gazed at the scattered papers, the DNA findings staring back at him. Beth was Steffy's. His daughter, the kid he had raised, loved, and sung to sleep, was not his. Or was she? The deception mattered more to him than the biology. Hope's silence, and her decision to marry him while suppressing this, stung deeper than any previous betrayal. He looked away from her, his shoulders stooped, unwilling to confront her tear-stained expression. Steffy's victory seemed hollow. She'd come to stop the wedding and reclaim her daughter, but the cost was clear in the carnage around her. The garden, once a refuge of love, has become a battlefield. Guests fled, leaving rumors behind them. The officiant slipped away, leaving the rings on the altar. Brooke cradled Hope as she fainted, her bridal gown gathering around her like a fallen cloud. Deacon remained motionless, his hands clenched, torn between rage at Steffy and sympathy for his daughter. Ridge approached Steffy, keeping his voice quiet. "You've done enough damage, Steffy. Go home." Steffy shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I had to, Dad. She's my daughter." Liam walked away, his steps heavy and his heart broken. He didn't glance back, not at Hope, Steffy, or the life he imagined he was creating. The garden deserted, and the roses withered under the weight of the truth. Hope sat alone on the altar steps, her tiara skewed and her dreams shattered. Steffy stood at the edge of the lawn, clutching the DNA results, her satisfaction dampened by the awareness that she had shattered not just Hope's wedding, but also Beth's chance at peace. The days that followed were a whirl of agony. Hope isolated herself in her cabin, avoiding visitors, and her phone was full of unanswered calls from Liam. She relived the wedding in her head, Steffy's voice reverberating like a nightmare. She had lost everything: Liam, her pride, and her future. Brooke tried to console her, but Hope's guilt was an insurmountable burden. She knew the truth about Beth, but she chose silent to protect her family. She had lost her entire family. Liam plunged himself into his job, avoiding the Forrester estate, Steffy, and thoughts of Beth's laughter. He couldn't face Hope and couldn't forgive her lies. But he couldn't face Steffy, whose wrath reminded him of the child they'd both lost in separate ways. Beth stayed with Hope while the courts decided her fate, but Liam paid her covert visits, his heart tearing every time she called him Daddy. He had no idea who he was anymore, husband, father, or fool. Steffy, despite her confidence, was disintegrating. She had triumphed in some ways. Beth was hers legally and biologically, but the victory tasted like ash. She saw the anguish in Liam's eyes, the despair in Hope's, and wondered whether she had gone too far. Her own pain, hidden for months, returned, mixed with guilt. She destroyed a family to restore her own, but at what expense? The Logan Spencer Forrester triangle, once a tangled web of love and betrayal, had become a graveyard of broken promises. Hope's wedding, which was supposed to be a new beginning, became the loss of all she held dear. Steffy's secret, her truth, had set her free yet shackled her for a life of sorrow. Liam, caught in the midst, was left with only the echo of an unfulfilled pledge. Years later, Beth would grow up with 3 parents: Hope, who loved her fiercely and protectively; Liam, who treasured her despite the lies; and Steffy, who fought for her with the desperation of a mother. But the scars from that day have never vanished. Hope never married again, her heart permanently attached to the guy she lost. Liam strayed, his love for Hope and Beth a never-healing wound. Steffy reared Beth with love and remorse, her when a reminder of the day she ripped up a family to rescue her own. The Forrester mansion stood still, its gardens unkempt, and the scent of white roses and broken vows hung in the air. Love, betrayal, and truth were the threads that connected Hope, Liam, and Steffy's lives, creating a tapestry of tragedy that no one could unravel. Steffy sat alone in the darkly lit Forrester guest home hours before the wedding, her hands quivering over a glass of water she had never tasted. The world outside was prepared for joy. The flowers had arrived. The ceremony chairs were arranged in perfect symmetry, and Hope's dress hung unspoiled and dazzling, like a promise no one should break. But pledges were already broken. Love had already been bent, sculpted, and twisted into something that appeared to be devotion but was actually filled with remorse. Steffy realized she was the reason. God knows she had tried to bury it. She had convinced herself that what had happened that night in the cloud of grief and comfort was only a slip, a wound looking for another to press against. When Liam arrived at her home, devastated and perplexed after feeling Hope had betrayed him, Steffy had been his sanctuary. She remembered how he crashed into her arms, and how being close to him felt like remembering herself. They had clung to each other since neither of them could hang on to anything else. But daylight had brought clarity, and guilt had sharpened each memory like broken glass. Liam regretted it. Steffy pretended she had as well. But a part of her heart, an aching, fragile part, had said something she couldn't ignore. She still loved him. When the pregnancy test came back positive, her breathing halted. Fear had swallowed her. She could have remained silent. She could have stood aside and let the wedding happen, allowing her child to grow up in the shadow of a lie. But she couldn't. Every time she saw Hope making last-minute changes to floral arrangements, Liam rehearsing his vows, or someone calling her family as if she weren't a ticking clock, she felt the truth clawing at her throat. She paced in the last hour before everything happened. Outside, laughing echoed through the windows. Hope's voice was light and unburdened. Steffy felt her heart ache for her, too. Hope sincerely loved Liam. She always has. Steffy had long accepted that Hope represented the gentle future Liam wished to create. Peaceful, stable, and reliable. Steffy embodied storms, tides, and history. Even though he claimed he wanted a different ending, she was the chapter he reread the most. There was a knock. It was Taylor. Her mother entered quietly, hesitantly. She'd seen the agony in her daughter's eyes all week. "You still haven't told him," she added softly. Steffy did not respond at first. Her voice would not come. Taylor moved closer. "Steffy, if you don't speak up now, this will eat at you. It will transform you. It will follow you into every moment after this one." "I understand," Steffy said quietly. Her throat burned. "But if I say anything, I'll break them. I'll break Hope." Taylor's face softened, but her gaze remained steady. Truth destroys what is not strong enough to hold it. Secrets break everything. Steffy closed her eyes. She wanted someone else could enter the chapel for her and speak the words she couldn't say. But it had to be her. She was the one who crossed the line. And she was going to pay for it. The wedding started off beautifully. The guests gathered with warm smiles and calm anticipation. Liam stood at the altar, frightened yet hopeful, his eyes filled with such earnestness that Steffy's chest ached. Hope walked down the aisle sparkling with sheer delight and trust. Steffy felt the room become remote, like if she were watching from underwater. She realized she could turn around. She knew she could walk away and never talk about it. However, her hand lifted before she could control it. Hope hadn't finished her vows when Steffy's voice broke the silence. "Wait." The room turned. Conversations ended quickly. Hope blinked in uncertainty. Liam's brow furrowed. Steffy took a step forward, her heart thumping so fast she feared she'd pass out. "I can't let this go without telling the truth. I apologize. I tried so hard not to do this today," Liam said, his voice shaking. "Steffy, what are you doing?" Hope looked from one to the other, her eyes filled with worry. "Steffy, what is wrong?" She forced her voice out. "Liam came to me the night he believed you had betrayed him. And we were together." The hush was broken with gasps. Hope felt the world tilt. "No," she said quietly, more in plea than refusal. Liam's face was robbed of color. "I told you I thought you kissed Thomas. I told you I was hurt and confused. But Steffy," his voice trembled. "We agreed. We said it was an error. We said it meant nothing." Steffy shook her head slowly, tears flowing down her cheeks. "It did not signify anything to me. And it didn't stop there." Her voice broke completely. "I am pregnant, Liam." The words, "I don't know if the baby is yours," shattered the silence in the room. Hope staggered backward, air leaving her lungs. She glanced at Liam, desperate, yearning, and broken. "Tell me this isn't happening," she sighed. "Tell me you did not do this again. Not again. Not to us." Liam reached for her, but she recoiled. Tears obscured his vision. "Hope, I was lost. I thought I had lost you. I made an error. I swear Is it a mistake?" Her voice soared, harsh and pained. "You keep saying that. Every time, it's a mistake, and I'm the one who forgives and tries again." Steffy wished to disappear. She wanted to take everything back, swallow it, and rip time apart. She took a step forward, her voice wavering. I never wanted to hurt you, Hope. I swore. I couldn't lie anymore. Not about this. Hope wiped her face, but the tears kept falling. Her hands shook as she took off her engagement ring. She slipped it into Liam's open palm with devastating calm. I thought we were finally going to be happy, she said softly. I believe you. I believed us. Liam broke down. Hope went away without saying another word. The guests remained frozen, hesitant, and uncomfortable. Ridge attempted to lead folks out, whispering for privacy. But Steffy and Liam remained entrenched in the devastation they had caused. Steffy muttered, I did not want this. I did not want to hurt her. Liam slumped down heavily, face buried in his hands. I couldn't raise a child under a lie. I don't even know who I am anymore. Steffy sat next to him, not to claim or hug him, but because she had nowhere else to go. The world outside remained as if nothing had happened. But something had been lost within the chapel. Something that might never return. Weeks passed, silent and heavy. Hope didn't communicate with Liam. She didn't communicate with Steffy. The two women who were once linked by tragedy, anguish, shared parenthood, and agonizing love now existed as parallel lines, never touching, never meeting, and never acknowledging the past that had once united them. Liam attempted several times to reach her, but each knock on her door felt like an echo of unfulfilled promises.